Hi guys, how are you? It's Yannick. Just got my 23andMe results. So I did this thing. You basically receive a kit. Everything's packaged inside of it. You remove one part that will be basically the container. You'll add a bit of spit inside of it, which is quite um, an amount, and then once you've basically had this like all sealed and everything, you put it in a Ziploc bag, ship it, and then they receive it after a month or so. You will get your results. It can be a bit later. It depends on how much process they have for the breakdown, or God knows. So here it is. I have the results now, and I find it quite interesting because I found that throughout my life, I've had different elements that appeared. Like I used to do certain things as like a little native kid. I used to like hunt pigeons and build bows and arrows and hide in bushes, and I was a little hunter. But I also did things where I was like close to snakes, wild animals since I was a kid. I've seen wolves. We've had like I've been surrounded by wolves also in parks in Ontario. Um, I've I've had quite a few encounters with like foxes, renard, and um, I don't know. I found it interesting that I actually have also some native blood. So, anyways, here's the breakdown. Uh, so I'm actually 25.6 British and Irish. Most of my family from France was mainly out of a certain region because my grandfather did the genealogical tree with all the resources he could gather. He got as far as over 1,000 years. So he basically like got so far in the ancestry that he knows that we're mostly part of one place. So I guess we might have had some family that's traveled a little bit around that area in the western part of France. But my father's side is mostly Celtic, and to further discovery, it has a few different different variations. So, British and Irish, 25.6. This was the Celtics, the Saxons, and the Viking ancestors. The people of Great Britain and Ireland have left their genetic fingerprint around the world following centuries of nautical exploration, colonization, and immigration. The modern British Commonwealth is composed of 52 member states found on every continent except Antarctica, and the English language is a lingua franca for global economy exchange. Also have this is I think from my mother's side. This is Italian blood, so I have 10.3 Italian blood. So far as we know, I'm part Sicilian, and I've had a grandfather. I also have a grandmother that's Italian, grandfather is Italian, and grandfather was Sicilian. Um, and because they immigrated afterwards in Argentina, and one was a vigilante, so that was pretty interesting. Hopefully, he didn't do enough bad things for them to pursue me. But yeah, he was helping the people. He was like a Robin Hood type person, and Cecilia is really tough. So I don't know. It's fascinating. Also a bit scary. It's kind of like a fascinating. Wow, I didn't know. Interesting. I'm also Iberian. Iberian is the genetic landscape of the Iberian Peninsula, represented today by the people of Spain and Portugal, was influenced by several Mediterranean civilizations, including 800 years ago of Arabic North Africa rule. Because there's a little pathway between Spain and Gibraltar, and this is where like a lot of people used to travel. It was not so much of a far distance, so a lot of people immigrated from North Africa all the way to Spain, Portugal. So this is basically it. It's a mix of a mix of the two worlds for the Iberian people. I also have some Balkan Albanian blood. This was apparently part of my family that had blue eyes. That was, I think they were called basically Russians. So there were Russians that have traveled and ended up in Albania over the years. So this was their rhythm. I also have 5.3 French German. A lot of the Celtics used to travel from, I heard of Druids that used to travel from the Black Forest of Germany all the way to the Celtic world of the western part of France. And there is a lot of traditions that are being shared. If you look at Alsace and all the north part of France, there's a lot of Celtic clothing, the culture, the language. Even the German language sounds a bit like the Celtic Breits Viking language, Canavo for the Breton. So there is a lot of similarities. So French and German doesn't surprise me on my father's side, because we've had a lot of people that were mainly, they could have been traveling in these areas hundreds or thousands years ago, right? Broadly Southern European. So this is basically all the North Mediterranean, because on my mother's side I have Argentinian blood, and that I know for sure. There was traces of native, which we'll go up onto in a bit, but there was also, as we said, Italian, Sicilian, and then we've had people from the Balkan, but I might have also maybe mestizos, which is like a mix, I think that's how you say it, mix between conquistador and Native American. So there's a 4 chance that I have Spanish blood. Also my family descendants, Torres. There is Hispanic families, and the Torres have basically all over Las Americas, north, south, central. It's a very, very popular name. So yeah, definitely it might be some Hispanic in me, and then Italian, Albanian, maybe also some parts landed in the lower region of the Byzantine Empire, the Greek and everything north of Constantinople, all these Czech countries and East European countries, basically. So that's that. Native American, Argentinian. So apparently we might be Mapuche, which is basically a Native American of Chile, part of Argentina too, in the mountains, and other places. Very popular in the middle region also of Argentina. They have been traveling. They were the last people to actually last in Argentina and Chile, mostly, where they've had a 200 years war with colonizers of bloodshed in order to keep their land, and then eventually in the 1900, the Chilean government kind of didn't agree to any treaties to support the Native Americans there. but this is the part of the Native American blood I might have, and they say that it's also broadly to the north and the south. So I might have also descendants from the natives that have traveled somehow, which is also a possibility. Um, if they've had to, I'm wondering also if it's related to some of my Viking blood, because some of them have traveled, Celtics have traveled, so they went to the north part, which is a bit interesting. So this is that. So 7.7 Native American from Argentina and zero point 0.4 from uh, uh, basically Malaysia, Indochina. So I have some actual Indian and South Asian blood, a teeny percentage, which might be from my mother's descendants too, from the people that have had traveled from Russia, and then I've had basically descendants that came all the way from the east, far, far east of Asia. That may have traveled also with some Russians all the way to Europe over time, and then landed with the Sicilians and Italians, then Argentinians, and then eventually, have mixed up there too, right? So it's pretty interesting. And then on the other side, the Celtic and Viking that may have traveled, obviously, because they were sailors, they were really good at fishing, and I've never got seasick since I was a kid. I got on open seas, open oceans, and I loved it. I actually love it. I just, I'm singing, I'm dancing on the boat. Everything's awesome. I haven't been in too big of storms, but I do enjoy cold water surfing and a lot of different things like that. So that might have to do with my Celtic and Viking blood. And then I have this side where I have these big eyebrows, as you can see. It's not necessarily the size of the eyebrows, but just how this part goes in like this, and my eyes go in too. You see, so I think this is. We thought I was Neanderthal. A bit more Neanderthal than most people, but it turns out actually a bit less. But that might be a reason why I'm apt to stay in the sun too, and I enjoy the sun very much. My eyes are covered by my forehead, so that's basically it. So yes, Western Asia also. Domestication of grains and livestock emerged 11,000 years ago in Western Asia, sparking the agricultural revolution that spread to parts of Europe, Africa, and the rest of Asia. From the Caucasus of Anatolia to Iraq and Iran, Western Asia is an important crossroads in the human migration out of Africa. And the genetics of this region reflects that role. A Western Asian genetic signature also appears in North Africa and Southern Europe. So basically, some of my ancestry from Africa might have just went this route, most likely. So they went towards the east, by Saudi Arabia, Mesopotamia, Egypt, and then they basically like went to the Asian lands, and then maybe landed around to the around the Mongolians regions to the Russian regions, and then eventually landed back to Europe again, if that is so. Or otherwise, I don't know. Were we always, it's how can I tell? I wasn't there. So this is it. The peoples of Western Asia and North Africa have not only genetics but also deep linguistic connections with one another. I have some West African blood. So this is the parts of Senegal all the way to the Ivory Coast, um, which is pretty interesting. Um, I'm wondering how far down the line we don't have too many people that are dark of color in our family that I know of, but we do tan easily, that's for sure. Um, and then this is the from the oldest. So I might actually be from the south of Africa in the oldest generations. Um, so I definitely got fair skin over the tens of thousands of years on this planet with my ancestors, right? So this is it, really. Uh, Pretty interesting, right? So um, there we go. So like lots of Celtic, mainly like broadly like half Celtic, North European, and then a lot of Mediterranean mixed with native. That is also originated from. I have a part also that's far. Yes, so uh, far Asia. Okay, yeah. Anyway, so then basically, yeah. So then the other part Mediterranean, the other half Mediterranean um, with some native blood too. I just saw a documentary on it, and it's always really sad when people are um, putting a fight for human values and human rights and not being heard as yet. And a lot of frustration can come in play, so it's never easy for anyone to defend themselves as a minority. But I hope this was helpful. So this is pretty cool because you actually get like a little bit of a breakdown. Some of the countries are assigned to certain genetic backgrounds that are identified. So you basically get quite a lot of information. Like the Albanian thing is pretty precise, and I do actually have Albanian blood. France, I have French blood. Italy. Sorry, I do have some Italian blood. So this is Argentina. I have some Argentinian blood. So all of this is pretty interesting. To get a mix of all that, and yeah. So that's that. I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions, you can leave a comment below. And it was a bit pricey, I think, and I think it's worth it. And it also shows you all the dates. So you'll have like an ancestry timeline. You have a lot of different things. If you pay extra, I think that they'll give you a report on your health. So they'll go for like some of the main characteristics and the faults that could appear in the DNA. Certain parts are more present that can influence basically your health over time. So you can also enter that information into another website that will give you all the breakdown. So if you listen to Joe Rogan, he has a doctor on it quite often, a woman that explains that on her website, and she'll give you like a breakdown on donations, on what it is that you have to look out for. For me, it was mostly vitamin D, getting supplements of that, and I think it's good to promote our health, and if we can do it in a healthy way, also a natural way, then it's always a good thing. Nowadays, the science, is moving up, so it's happening. Yes, it is. There we go. Um, and they show you the maternal allogroup. So see, exactly, yeah. So for my mother, that's it. So some parts from Africa. We came from south of Africa. My passing by Egypt, Arabi Saudi, and then we spread out a bit in Europe. So some parts in towards Asia, some parts towards the north, some parts towards the Mediterranean. Interesting. All of that is pretty interesting, right? And then they tell you how many hundreds of thousands of years it could be, and this is based on research that they've done on other people too. So by associating data, and that's how they come up with all that stuff basically. You can also search for people that might be from your family. You know, if you want more family, it's always a good thing. You know, you gotta keep some people close to you, and I think there's a lot of people that it's easy to get lost in the crowds, right? So it's good to have people to have around for X and Y reasons. So this is it, right? I think there's so I have and my variant is 268 Neanderthal. This is less than 64% of 23andMe customers. However, less than 4% Neanderthal overall on my DNA. There we go. So I have quite a lot of variants. There we go. Yeah, it's interesting, all that stuff. So this is it, and hopefully this can help some people to decide whether or not to go for the test. It is pretty easy to do, and you get a little bit of a breakdown. Hopefully it's your money's worth. I think it is, if it's your ancestry, and you know, they can always update the data, and once you have the data you can always upload it on a website to learn more. So it's a bit of an investment on who you might be or might not be, or think you'd be, and then you realize you are, and it's interesting because you know, it enlightens you a little bit, right? It's kind of like the Assassin's Creed thing. You have like echo memory, you know. I feel like this was a part of my childhood and my life, you know. I always had this feeling like I belong to some people out there, and we all do, you know. Hopefully, you know, we all appreciate, you know, our ancestry, how far or how close it is, and that is it, you know. We share this world all together as humans. Okay, peace on earth, and this is it. You guys have a good day. Cheers. As always, stay safe. Carpe diem.